Дорогі глядачі, вітаємо вас на українській телемережі «Контакт». І нам надзвичайно приємно сьогодні вітати на наших екранах автора, пана Віктора Маларека. Victor Malarek. Victor, welcome to our show. And we're here to talk about your new book that just came out. Last time it was Wheatshaft. And you had a junior, I guess, you could say so, reporter by the name of Matt Kozar, figuring out his identity. And he wound up in a very interesting story. And curious, are you, like I'm hearing that Matt Kozar is, again, a hero in your book. So let's start with that. Is he or not? And what's the storyline? How are you developing this character here?
Well, this character in Wheatshaft really didn't connect with the Ukrainian community, having been a fourth-generation American Ukrainian. Went off to a foster home because of trials and tribulations in his home life, and eventually goes to the New York Tribune and becomes a reporter and wants to investigate something. And he investigates a scandal of mammoth proportions involving food aid in the Horn of Africa during a famine, and finds out that Russians are involved in stealing the wheat along with a U.S. senator and an evangelical minister. He gets shot and almost dies. In fact, he was declared dead. And then he gets well and he goes off to look for another story. So about a year or so passes by through his rehabilitation and everything. And Matt Kozar is looking for another story. He's listening to a U.S. senator talk very passionately about the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and by Vladimir Putin. And he gets some kind of energized by it. And he talks to his editor and to his girlfriend, and he keeps saying, I don't know why this is bothering me. I mean, I've never really been much on Ukrainian. The only thing I ever knew about being Ukrainian was pyrohe, eating pyrohe, but that's about it. But he got consumed by it. And the interesting thing about Matt Kozar for me is so many young men and women who really are not all that connected or were not all that connected to the Ukrainian community suddenly felt this incredible pressure, this psychological thing, this passionate thing, this spiritual thing about a connection to Ukraine. And in Putin's assassin, his life as a Ukrainian really takes shape. And it takes shape that right after listening to this speech, he tells his girlfriend, he tells his editor, I got to go to Ukraine. I've got to go to the front line. I've got to do something. I've got to do something more than just sitting here. And they didn't want to let him at first. And in fact, they wouldn't let him at all because of a debate or a fight he was having with the foreign editor. But he goes. He goes, and where does he get into? Bucha. And in Bucha, he sees the reality of what the Russian soldiers and what Putin was doing to Ukrainians, the slaughter, the executions, the bombings and everything, and he writes about it. And when he comes back, he gets really involved because something else is about to happen with respect to the senator that he was connected to. So in Putin's assassin, he really gets moving, and he really, really understands what it was like and is like to be Ukrainian. And his girlfriend, who really works in the whole field of DNA, says, Matt, the one thing that you have to understand is you have DNA, the Ukrainian DNA in your blood, and that's what's driving you. So he rediscovers, or really discovers, the fact that he's got this passion for Ukraine and really starts going after it in Putin's assassin.
Man, so this... like this, I can't ask, is this a book of fiction or fact? Because it sounds like there's a lot of fact. The other question is also like, is this biographical or what? Like this sounds like you're blending in a lot of reality into here. So let's hear the answer to that.
Well, what the interesting thing is that in this book, I could mix fact. And in fact, I do say at the beginning of the book, a lot of what's in here with respect to Ukraine is based on reality, is based on fact. Look, Matt Kozar didn't really go to Bucha, but he's a fictional character. But everything that happened in Bucha is exactly what happened in Bucha. The executions, the slaughter, the bombings, the rapes, all of this happened and he sees it and how it affects him personally and how the newspaper deals with it. So you have that reality. And the other reality is Matt Kozar is, Victor Malarek when he was in his 30s, a little bit wild, a little bit crazy, because I ended up, for example, in Wheatshaft, I was with the Globe and Mail, and I went to see the famine in Ethiopia in 1982-83. So I knew what was going on there, all the scandals and whatever. And I felt, well, I'm going to write this book and deal with that. I've been to Ukraine a few times with the doctors who were operating, the Canadian doctors who were operating on wounded soldiers. I was there to look at orphans. I was there to help open up an orphanage, a small orphanage for destitute girls. So I know what's going on over there, but I really wanted to have Matt go and experience A, what the war was all about, and B, what was driving him. Even though he was going to take a massive risk, it was driving him. And it drives so many people. And issues have always driven me as a reporter on human rights and on, the trafficking of women, the abuse of children within the child welfare systems, both in Canada and around the world. So you see, Matt Kozar, I guess, is a bit of a young Malarek.
Well, how about another question? The title of your book, I think, is every Ukrainian's dream wanting to be that. Okay, so how do you play that in the book?
Well, Putin's assassin is an assassin hired or recruited by Putin to go and do something in Washington, and he does. And what he does is the great mystery of how, when Matt Kozar comes back, and he has a lot of respect for this senator, how does he solve what is an almost impossible mystery to solve? And every time he goes out there, he hits his head against a wall, he hits up against another wall and another wall. He's about to give up because, he wants to be a good investigative reporter. That's what he wants to do. He believes that the senator who's been charged with 2 murders is in fact innocent. But how do you prove it when everything is stacked against him, including on 100% of the senator's DNA? So he's about to give up, which he doesn't want to do, and then boom, something happens, and that's the turn, and that's Matt Kozar.
Well, that sounds fascinating, Victor, and I do want to jump ahead, also beyond the book. Now, first of all, for all of our listeners, Victor will be with his book, presenting his book at the Bloor West Village Ukrainian Festival, at the festival in Montreal also. But I would like to point out like a current issue that Victor will be working on in his next book, I suspect, at least in talking to you, which is the Ukraine Stolen Children. The theme of our festival in the Bloor West Village and the exhibit now at the CNE, focusing on the stolen children that Putin has stolen and how do we bring them back. What is your take on your future with that theme? Let's say even with Matt Kozar.
Well, it will be a trilogy. So Matt Kozar, in this new book that I'm working on right now, will find himself brought into the whole area of stolen children through a specific case, and all of the the foibles that he has to deal with, all of the walls that he has to run into, all of the bureaucratic red tape and baffle gab, and just trying to dig and dig and dig to first find a specific individual or child who's been kidnapped, and secondly, to bring the whole question of the stolen children to the Tribune, to the front page of the Tribune, and say, this is what's happening. And the world has got to listen that not only is Putin a war criminal in the bombings and killings and executions, but he's also a war criminal in the kidnapping and abduction of children and bringing them into Russia and Russifying them. And his girlfriend, again, who's a DNA expert, will again play a major role in his investigation and in what he's going after. So there will be a third Matt Kozar book, who even gets more crazier as he goes along, wanting to, make sure that he does something, that he affects change, and that he holds people accountable who should be held accountable. Because I've always said, if you want to be a good journalist, and in particular, if you want to be a really top-notch investigative journalist, accountability with the bad guys, with the politicians, with whomever, is the most important part of your investigation. At that point, you hold people accountable, you hold their feet to the fire, and you say, what are you going to do about this? And never mind the baffle gab, tell me what you're going to do. And that's what Matt Kozar is going to be doing.
Well, Victor, thank you very much, and good luck to your presentation of the book and the sales. Yeah. Can this be received, picked up anywhere else outside of our festivals? Yeah, keep it up.
Yeah. Well, it's now on Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble. You can also get it through ordering it on bookstores. But Amazon.com, Amazon.ca. It's readily available both in paperback and ebooks and in hardcover. But I think this is yet another great read. And by the way, I really want to give a shout out to Sonia Holiad, who is my editor and a good friend, but tough editor, but a really good editor. I mean, she saves my butt in WeChat a couple times, and she saves my butt in Putin Assassin as well. But it's good to have somebody on your side who looks after what you're doing and does a good job.
Well, more kudos to that. Very nice of you to mention Sonia, and to all of our viewers out there. Victor will be at both festivals in Montreal and in the Bloor West one in Toronto. But to hear in person, we have a special presentation format set up for the Bloor West Village, never done before. So Victor will be performing or showing off the book there, and available for sale too, I gather, right? So
yeah, and proceeds from the book are going to be going to the Canada-Ukraine Foundation.
Okay, very nice. So, дорогі глядачі, це був автор Віктор Маларек про книжку «Putin's Assassin», яку він буде представляти на українських фестивалях наступними тижнями. І вертаємося до передачі відразу після наступних реклам. Victor, thank you very, very much and good luck.